Hi everyone, this is a video that I was praying I never had to make. Welcome to Life on the Farm, or welcome if you're new. I need to give you an update on the farm, Bob's cancer, and the fact that he passed away. I'm sorry. Back last year, the cancer had come back. I'm sure I told you on a previous video. He did start doing chemotherapy, radiation in December of 2024. In October, he ended up with a lesion that was blocking off the bile duct for the liver. So he started filling up with fluid, and then we were going at first every week, and then in 2 weeks to get that drained. It's called ascites. It's the fluid buildup in your stomach when your liver's not working properly. So he was getting that drained often. December, he had radiation on that area of the vein that it flows through. It did go down some. So he went from being drained every week to every 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, but we still went every 2 weeks for his comfort level. And so then December, he ended up with, the day after Christmas, he ended up in the hospital. Well, go back November, right before Thanksgiving, he ended up in the hospital because he needed to be drained and he couldn't get in. So we went to the ER, and it ended up that, we were there for 4 hours waiting at University of Michigan to get in to see the ER physician because he needed to be drained really bad. And Port Huron, where we live, they didn't have anybody on call because it was a Saturday. So we drove the 2 hours to U of L. Well, as he was getting discharged, because they said that they couldn't drain him either, that he'd have to be an inpatient or just schedule his appointment with his regular person that does it. He spiked a high fever. They did a whole bunch of blood cultures, everything like that. Can't figure out where the fever came from, and it was pretty much gone, within hours of them realizing that he had spiked this fever. But he was admitted for 3 days. They did drain him a little bit while he was there, not all the way. Drained the fluid in his stomach. Then December, the day after Christmas, we had to go to the ER again. And he ended up he was having shortness of breath and just not feeling right. He ended up having COVID, the flu, and a blood clot in his lung. Just a small one. So he was there for 3 days. They put him on blood thinners. They gave him a bag of blood thinner, and then put him on blood thinners that he had to take every day, morning and night. So we continued to go and, U of M, be drained every 2 weeks. The radiation he had at the beginning of December. So it did help a little bit. It made it to where he didn't have to go every week to be drained. He also had the radiation on his lymph nodes that he had cancer in, that it showed up in. The radiation didn't seem to help any of those. It didn't seem to help the lymph nodes. It only helped the liver bile duct, or whatever you want to call it, a little bit in his chemotherapy. Well, unbeknownst to us, during his chemotherapy since January, his liver counts were spiking, and they never said anything to us, and never sent us to a liver specialist or anything like that. And they just continued to do chemotherapy. Well, he had his scan back in March, and it came back that all the lymph nodes, the liver cancer was still growing and everything else. And due to the fact that his liver count was so high at that point, they couldn't do any more chemotherapy. But which was unbeknownst to us, we didn't realize his liver count was that bad. He did lose a lot of weight from the ascites and having his teeth pulled back in July. He was having a hard time eating. It took almost 9 months to get his dentures in. He got his dentures in towards the middle of March, towards the middle of March is when his dentures were done, but they didn't fit correctly, so he had to go back and have them realigned. So that took 2 weeks. So he got his dentures back probably the end of March. Well, after his CT scan, they told us we had an appointment March 28th, I think it is. It was the Thursday, a week and a couple days before he passed away. That they said that they couldn't do any more chemotherapy, that his liver counts were too high. So we asked him straight up, you know, he had lost 80 pounds at this point. He was down to 155. And prior to July, he weighed 242. So he was getting weak. He was losing muscle mass and all that. And once we received the call, we asked, well, if you're not going to do any more chemotherapy, exactly how long does he have? And they said 3 to 6 months. I said, well, if we get his liver count back down, would that help? And they said it possibly could, but the chemotherapy that he was on was the strongest chemotherapy there was for his colon cancer, stage 4 colon cancer. So they don't see being able to put him on anything else but a maintenance pill. So that night we went around and we told everybody what was going on and everything. And his last drainage, they had, the main place that actually did it of UMFM closed down, so he had to go to the radiology department to do it. And their blood pressure cuff was broken, and it just kept pumping up his arm constantly. It deflate, pump up, and he said it was like 20 minutes of that before they realized and took it off. So the day after that, his arm was so swollen. I mean, his arm was swollen, bruised, and it took us about 3 weeks to actually get in to have an ultrasound done. And this was the Friday before he passed away. And they told us at the ultrasound that he's got a blood clot right here. Oh, for his CT scan, they also told us, mind you, he's been on blood thinners since December, well, the end of December. They also told us he had another clot in his other lung, which seemed weird because he's on blood thinners. Why is he continuing to get clots? And so that Friday that we went for the ultrasound, they found a blood clot, probably from the blood pressure cuff going on and off. So they sent us to the ER. And while we were in the ER, his doctors, our main primary doctor's office, called and said that his blood labs came back and his sodium level was super low and there was something else. And if it don't get, back up, he'd go into a coma. So, the ER doctor or ER nurse was right there and she was listening to this call. I said, well, I told him we were already at the ER because this blood clot that they found in his shoulder. And the nurse was listening on the call, so she knew what the blood work had showed. So he ended up staying in the ER for a day and a half before they could get him a room. He was admitted. And Saturday afternoon, they found him a room. And this was the 5th, April 5th. They got him a room. He got upstairs. Everything was going good. He was comfortable. I left at about 7 when March Madness came on so we could watch the games. And I got back the next morning, I'd say about 8:30. It was about 8:30, and he was drinking a glass of orange juice. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, well, my sugar level's really low. His sugar level dropped down to like in the 60s, mid 60s. So they gave him a glass and a half of orange juice. Well, I say a glass and a half because as he was drinking the second cup of orange juice, is making him nauseous and he's starting to throw up, like dry heave. So he got up. I helped him up. He went to the bathroom, came back, and they came in and checked his sugar level again, and it was still dropping even with the orange juice. So they gave him a shot of, I don't know what, to bring it up. That didn't work. It still dropped. It dropped down to 50. So they gave him a lot more of it, which brought it back up. But by this time, he was sleeping. He was sleeping, and I could tell when he was sleeping that something wasn't right because his breathing during his sleep was totally different. And he was in and out of it the rest of the day. And towards mid-afternoon, they came in and told us it's not looking like he's getting any better. His blood pressure, since the time that we actually got to the hospital, was on the lower side, which is typically when he has chemo it does that, but he wasn't having chemo, so they had been monitoring that, and they couldn't get it back up. And everything they tried, they couldn't get it back up. Midday, they gave him a cup of salt water, which I was thinking, sorry about that. So my memory card was full. So I was thinking when they were giving him the salt water, I'm like, they should have been giving that to him to begin with when he was in the ER, but they never did. So he was pretty much in and out of it all of Sunday. And when they couldn't get his blood pressure back up to the normal range, they said that there's a medication that we can give him, but he'll have to be in ICU to take it. But with his liver damage already, it could cause more damage to the liver. Even if they did give it to him, if they didn't give it to him, it don't look like he'll make it through the night. He may not. So he ended up going to the ICU, and before he left, he gave our granddaughter Eloise a great big hug. Audrey wasn't there. Our other granddaughter, she was born in June. She wasn't there because she was too young, and so she was being watched by my son-in-law's mom. So I told him I loved him and I'll see him in a few minutes, and gave him a kiss. He went to the ICU. He was answering, when we got there, he was answering yes, no questions, but not a whole lot. So I sat with him for a few minutes, and then I was allowing everybody else to go in and sit with him. When I got back in with him, I could feel like I could hear a gurgling in his lungs. I said, "What's going on? This wasn't here when he got here." And they said, "Well, he's having a hard time breathing," which I knew he was because I could tell by when he was sleeping by his breath pattern. I mean, I watched him all the time, I watch him sleep all the time, make sure he's breathing and stuff like that, and I've done that since we found out he had cancer. So they put him on a machine that it was a mask, it wasn't the CPAP, it looked similar to it. They put him on that and gave him something to help break up the phlegm that was going into his lungs because he couldn't cough it out. Well, they administered this medicine to hopefully raise his blood pressure. Well, his breathing was getting worse and worse even with that on. I mean, it was helping put oxygen in as he was breathing in, but it was getting more labored, and you could tell. And after administering almost half of this medication for his blood pressure, and it went up a little bit, but it was not doing really anything for him. I made the decision. He hadn't woke up for like 5 hours. He was in a coma. To put him on maintenance care because he wasn't coming out of it. And this was Sunday the 6th at about 9 o'clock in the evening. Our children were there. And so they put him on maintenance care, put him on a morphine drip to keep him comfortable. He's still having a really hard time breathing. And I don't know, it could have been due to the clots in his lung, I don't know. But his liver count was really bad. His blood was so thin that they couldn't even administer his blood thinner the day before from his liver not working correctly. And so they put him on that and at 3:57 on April 7th. My world crashed. The love of my life passed away. I messed up something awful. They say you got time to prepare, you know. He dealt with it for 5.5 years. But you never prepare to lose someone you love with everything you've got. So please pray for our family. I just wanted to let you know what was going on. The only animals I have left on the farm are my chickens and turkeys. A week prior to him passing, I sold the goats and the sheep because I knew he was too weak. He couldn't help out anymore. And he lost so much weight, he could barely get upstairs. You know, just the stair from our garage into our house, he could barely even get up that. And, so I had sold the goats and the sheep. So the only thing here right now, which my dad's helping me out with still, is the chickens. He tends the chickens in the morning. We'll make sure they have water. They've got an automatic door, so he don't have to lock them up at night or let them out in the morning. But let me grab a tissue. But I lost a great man, great father, and a great grandpa. And I miss him so much. Today's the 28th. I took a couple weeks off work. I started doing some designs for the business. Oh, like this is one of them. And I've got a heart on the sleeve. I've been doing more spiritual designs. The day of his funeral, I was scrolling through Facebook and I had seen fear not, and it's got Isaiah 41:10, and on the sleeve of the shirt it says, "For I am always with you." So I did that. I made that top, and it is on the website at www.craftywithit.com if anybody wants to go see my designs. But it's been hard. It's been so hard being here without him. But I know he'd want me to go on. It's just, it's hard. So, thank you everybody for listening. I just wanted to give you an update on what's going on. And I appreciate everybody. Bye for now.